Perfect. Welcome to the two of you. We've got more people joining now. So let me just get Liz in. And Julie, if you can keep an eye on the participants and just keep them kind of coming in. I'll keep an eye on them. Welcome, Liz. We've just getting going. Today's session we're doing on how to have presence and impact. So the first thought I think I'd just ask is that you've taken this time out, you've got the preparation for Thanksgiving happening, but you wanted to turn up today. So why is this subject actually important or of interest to you? So James, what kind of sparked your interest on this subject?
I think I've always kind of been interested in the way I present myself. I've been wrapped up. I've been doing IT for almost 30 years. And a chunk of that was in public education. And so I was working with a lot of adults and those sorts of things. But it's about sharpening my my skills outside of IT. We could talk about electrical engineering. We could talk about information technology, and I could bore you to death with that. But it's about having that personal presence and impact. And some people say I have that presence anyway. You can't tell it on the screen, but if I'm to stand up, I'm a fairly large human. I'm 6'4" and weigh 265. I'm a big guy. So I take up a lot of space, but as I tell people, I also breathe in a lot of people's air. So it's a matter of, I think it's just sharpening some of the skills that I have, especially as I complete my career and move up to the next step in my my professional position, I think.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for that, James. Liz, how about yourself?
Hi, Robin. Hi, everyone. For myself, I can relate to what James talked about, having a physical presence, because I'm nearly 6 feet tall, and for a brown woman, woman of color, that's not common. Commonly known. So it was useful in my early career in construction, because it helped me as an engineer to have some kind of presence. But for me, this subject's important because I'm trying to lead change in my organization in the area of project management and project management capability and its importance and its value. And as a public servant, so I work for the state government of Victoria, the responsible expenditure of public money, and trying to have a presence impact on people who are delivering our projects, for them to, I guess, be inspired to, go, hey, let's plan our project. So this is why and we're just right in the middle of doing a big piece on that uplift in the organization of our portfolio maturity. So I'm really keen to learn how to have some presence and impact beyond the obvious physical presence and impact.
Awesome. And there's lots of similarities. I don't know if people know my background, some of in this space. I started my career by doing aid work in Africa, and then went and did civil engineering and was recruited by the Victorian government to drive a more collaborative way of delivering infrastructure projects. But also was in the Reserve Army for 4 years, training officers. So there's a different level of influence and impact, So and I've got kind of like one of those deep voices that's really good at shouting at people as well, which is great for the army, but not so good, kind of like you say, like we need to have different kind of levels of influence and impact with people. Perfect. Thanks, Liz. So generally speaking, a bit of an introduction. What are impact and presence? Impact and presence, and I'll show you some slides on my theory with regards to impact or presence, but it's that your ability to immediately and instantaneously connect and have an impact on the other person without almost having to say or do anything. It's what is that impact that you have with them. Now, why are they important? All the latest research, well, all the research ever, but even more so, the latest kind of research shows that out of all the different persuasion techniques that there are, like reciprocity and scarcity and all these tricks and techniques, the number one that trumps all of them combined is relationship and connection. That's the one that trumps. And so through COVID, what we've seen is even though people have been more removed from people because they've been isolated and stuff like that, our desire to buy from a sense of connection with people is actually only but increased over time. And so the reason why impact and presence are important is that if we want to achieve outcomes, if we want to influence and, you know, like why it's important is that you can resolve issues faster, quicker, more effective, and get better outcomes with people and have more joy because you're getting shit done basically, and you're getting that kind of movement through. That's why impact and presence are kind of important, because if you look at it in the opposite, if you don't have impact and a presence, everything kind of grinds. Do you know what I mean? Everything's hard work. You know, I walk into James's office and James looks at me and goes, "Oh God, Robin again," you know. Don't worry, James, I have that impact on a number of people.
Yeah, sorry, it turned out to be a boarding chair.
But it's not particularly helpful. Do you know what I mean? So it's like if this is, and this is, you know, the work that I do is I identify the things that are the genuine hidden obstacles for people, and we put a laser light on them and go, right, what can we do about them to lift them? So if we lift our level of impact and presence, it helps, like with every area of our life, you know, with our kids, with our loved ones, with stakeholders, internally, managing up, managing down, managing sideways. Yeah. And if you don't believe me, just this, this is the InspireMe, the cycle of change. How is it that we actually change as humans? Because what I want to make sure is that out of this webinar today, you take away some things so you can actually implement change for yourself. So getting new insight is the first phase of making change. Then you need to understand it. And they're the two bits that I'm going to give you. You need to come to the acceptance of, oh yeah, this bit probably relates to me. So I'm going to give you ideas of strategies and actions that you can take. Yeah. So from your level of acceptance, I'm going to give you strategies and actions, and you can grab some of the skills, tools, or techniques that I give you. And what I want you to do over the course of the next like 45 minutes is to go, yeah, that's an action that I'm actually going to try, or something that I'm really going to focus on, and just write it down for yourself. And if you walk away with 1, 2, or 3 things, that's all you need, because it's those 1%ers that you can have a dramatic kind of impact on things. Yeah. And obviously then you take the action, then you draw observation, reflection, new inspiration from that. It gives you new insight. And don't worry, sometimes you can take an action and it backfires. That's okay, because you observe, you reflect, you draw new inspiration, go, right, never do that again. Right, but I am going to do this. Does that make sense? And you're going around in this positive cycle of change. If you don't believe me in regards to executive presence and impact being really, really important, you can just Google it, the number of articles that are around it, you know, like employers, this is what they're wanting from graduates coming through. If you don't have executive presence and impact, it literally doesn't matter what your technical skills, abilities, or what your intuitive ideas of the strategic direction of the organization, or what you think needs to happen. If no one's listening to you, you end up being a lone nut, standing on a hill with everyone looking at you going, oh, they're still up there, you know? So we've got to have this presence and impact to connect with people. Just to give you a bit of a feel, this is the InspireMe coaching model that I work with leaders on. Oh, let's just go back. So when people are feeling stuck, we need to look at their inner leader, which is to understand what are your individual personality preferences, strengths, and weaknesses, to identify what those hidden obstacles are, to go into strategic planning. Then from that strategic planning, we'll identify what do you need to do next to achieve the outcomes that you want, and where you're lacking the influence or impact to get the outcomes that you want. You can see the leadership impact part of my model there. So the 9 areas around the outside become 9 focus areas that I work with leaders on to help them achieve what they want and really live there, you know, overcome difficult challenges and live with more meaning, joy, and purpose, and have the influence and impact that they want. So that's where leadership impact, that's where this training kind of fits in the overall model of things. Little comment from Liz there in the chat. Not always to build relationships. Yeah. Yeah. So That's interesting, Liz. One of the things in actual fact that I'll go into is if you want to have presence and impact, it's absolutely to invite contrary opinion to what you're saying is actually a tactic for building greater presence and impact. So it's really interesting because sometimes we feel like it's like, oh, I'm being challenged. And in actual fact, to build better is like, hey, this is what I'm thinking, but where have I got it wrong, people? What other ideas have you got?
Yeah. And I don't have any problem with being challenged because I like a good debate, but it's more that people who just say no.
Yeah. And the key thing with that, and that's probably in the influence side of things and overcoming resistance and dealing with difficult tactics, but give you a tip there. I always say, go closer to the pain. So when someone says no, there's a logical reason why they're saying no. I might think that they're crazy, stupid, or evil for saying no. But what my brain says is, oh, they're saying no. I don't understand why, but I'd love to find out. Hey, Liz, like, I can hear you saying no, and like, there's only one way. Like, you must have really thought about this to come up with that really firm conclusion. Can you help me understand what was your thinking about that? It's actually to go closer to them and not to judge it, but to really seek to understand them. And then that actually dissolves their power. Yeah, it's an influencing technique rather than a presence and impact.
I've forgotten how challenging it can be working the VPS.
Yeah. So, you know, like I've been there. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, my last role there was, you know, I looked after the Western Ring Road upgrade
That's
project.
right. Yes,
Yeah.
that's where we met. Yeah.
So, yeah. So presence and impact. What I want you to do is just write down a number for yourself. You don't have to tell me. You can put it in the chat if you want. But like, if we're going to improve anything, let's just do an evaluation. Like, rate yourself today. What is your level of presence and impact overall? And it might be, you know, 5, it might be 6, it might be 7, it might be 8. But then also write that number. Now just write for yourself, what are a few of the pain points? What is it that, and Liz, you've started to put some of yours down already. Just jot down for yourself, what are the pain points of me having a lack of presence and impact? How does it show up? What areas of my life? And it might be, oh, well, I go to a management meeting or a board meeting and I don't actually say what I think because I don't feel like I've got the presence and impact. It could be that when I present my ideas, people just don't seem to listen to me. It could be more on the personal side of things. You know, I've got a 16-year-old son and he just absolutely despises me. You know, like it could be any. Just identify, where is it for you that these pain points exist? Because everything else that I go through, you can then apply to those you've got those kind of pain points in your mind individually for you, and it'll help you ask me any questions as we go as well. Yeah. But generally, yeah, Deborah says, I don't feel heard. Yeah, that's a big one. So have that and others in your mind. I mean, generally for me, I would say my pain points is that I just feel frustrated, that I could see an outcome that I could get that I haven't got because I didn't get the cut through. And I know what I've got is of value, but it's not being heard, a bit like Deborah. But that makes me just be really, really frustrated because I'm literally going mad in my own brain. So that's why focusing on this subject can help you kind of, you know, it won't solve all your problems, but it will give you some tools where you can chip away at that. So the first thing is to understand about leadership, presence, and impact is you're always making an impact. But is it the right impact? Actually bring your consciousness to it, first of all. You know, how you know, if I decide to put on this kind of shirt, or if I put a shirt on a tie, or if I had a t-shirt, you know, everything is going to give a different impact. So I chose this shirt today. I quite like it, to be honest. Realize that you're always making an impact. Yeah, because everyone's always looking at you. Now, I live in Byron Bay now along the beach and walk along the sand. And then when I walk along the sand, you have an impact in the sand. That's one thing, but also what you look, when you look behind you, you leave an impression in the sand. Does that make sense? So with this presence and impact, it's really important because some people go like, I want to be like those people who get in there and do this and do that, but then they're leaving a trail of destruction behind them sometimes. So also it's important to look at your presence and impact, but what's the impression that you're leaving behind you, and taking ownership of that and getting feedback on that as well. Because is it the right impression that you want? Because that impression that you have on people greatly influences what you're able to achieve. Yeah. Now, you need to actively manage the perceptions that others have of you, right? There's a simple technique. It's called the think, feel, do model. So this is a free little tidbit I'll give you. Any meeting that you're going into, just consider a few bullet points for yourself. What is it that I want the other party to think or know about me or about the subject? How do I want them to feel about me as a person? How do I want them to feel about the situation that I'm going to be talking about? And what do I want them to do as a consequence of the meeting, or what action do I want them to take? If you just do that, think, feel, do for every meeting, it literally takes you 30 seconds. Then that's you actively managing the perceptions of others that have of you. And I tell you right now, you will have more purposeful meetings as a consequence of that very, very small, simple tool. Because ultimately, just rushing into a meeting and you're halfway through the meeting and then you start thinking about what do I need to do, you're just leaving it all up to chance. And what you're also leaving up to chance is that we call this thing an accidental adversary. Where is it that I go in, I say or do something, and then I accidentally didn't mean to, but I've pissed someone off, you know, and I've created an accidental adversary. I didn't mean it. It's just that I wasn't conscious of how I wanted to show up in that moment. One of the things we're thinking about, right, the leader that I want to be and how do I want to show up? It's important to kind of think of the characteristics of a leader, yeah? Because impact and presence, it's not what you have, but it's what you do, and that can be learned. And that can be very simple with regards to looking at the characteristics of the leader that you want to be, and then actively focusing on them. Like I said, I used to train officers in the British Army, or train them before they went off the academy. And it always amazed me. We used to call the Sandhurst in England, they call it the factory, because whoever you are coming in, you go through the factory and you all come the same out, you know, these natural born leaders. But when they came in, they very much weren't like that. And so it's amazing at what you can actually train and change in people. So the first thing to do is actually just identify what are the characteristics of leaders with impact and presence in your domain. Because like Liz, the characteristics that work for you are going to work for you because they're for you. The ones that Elon Musk have got, the things that, I don't know, Donald Trump's got versus, I don't know, just can't think of people, Mike Jordan or whatever the case may be. It works for them because they're them. Does that make sense? It's helpful to look at other people to identify things, but you've got to connect with them. So it's much better for you to go, right, what are the characteristics that are most important for me to show up in my life, in my sphere of influence, in my work? What are those characteristics for me that I want to focus on? Now, in the longer version of this webinar, I get people to brainstorm what's the characteristics of top leaders, and pretty much we can all brainstorm what the models tell us are exactly the right ones. So I'll just give them to you. So these are, I can't remember this model. The next model is the Bates's model, but this is a theoretical model where they've identified the top leadership characteristics of people with presence and impact. Confident, courageous, authentic, genuine, articulate, persuasive, aware, adaptable, They've got a bit of humor, you know. That's why you notice my little bad dad jokes kind of coming in every now and then, because it helps, you know. But equally, it can kind of create accidental adversaries. So I've got to be a little bit careful with that, you know. But we can connect with people emotionally as well as being confident and courageous. So these are all words, and I think everyone understands these, but it's like, okay, what do I do with them to get the outcome that I want? Now, another way, by the way, we'll send you all these slides. Leroy, if you make sure that we send everyone the slides, or maybe, Leroy, just for people here, you could put a link to the slides in the chat and they can download them if they want. This is the Bates's model of executive presence. Again, very similar words that we would all kind of, if we brainstorm for 15 minutes, I reckon we would come up with 80 or 90% of those words. So what we're going to now look at is actually making it practical. So if we want to speak with leadership, impact, and presence, let's get practical on what does that actually mean. Now, the three things that you've got at your disposal is the visual, what you look like, the appearance that you kind of have. You know, are you on a Zoom meeting with your camera turned off? You know, you're vocal, and then you're verbal. So it's the words that you use, and then it's the tone, it's the pitch, it's the pace, it's the emphasis, and all of that kind of stuff. So when you're thinking about it at the basic level, you know, it's visual, vocal, verbal. We can't change what we totally look like, but we can. You know, I shaved my head last night, you know, you can see the light kind of glimmering off of it. You know, I've got a sharpness about me this morning. That's what I think anyway. But, you know, we just kind of think about that. You know, most people have a power suit. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, yeah, I need that. And so just think about the visual, vocal, or verbal for the different kind of environments that you go to, you know, to be to resonate with that appropriate environment. Now, in thinking about those three things, we think about these three things with all the skills, tools, or tactics. This is the most helpful thing of this whole webinar, I reckon. So feel free to drop after this slide if you want. No, not really. The research shows us, right, that people judge us within seconds of seeing us. And the Harvard Business School has identified that 80% comes to two factors. So if you think about it, 20% of people's evaluation is due to a whole range of things: their social upbringing, their gender, their, you know, their subconscious biases, their traumas, and everything else like that. All of that we don't control. But 80% of everyone's evaluation is on two factors. If we can know what those two factors are, we can absolutely focus on them. And these are the two factors of warmth and strength. Okay. So warmth is, and I would say, James, as soon as I met you, and even I heard your voice, your warmth came through. Does that make sense? Warmth is how warm, connecting. You know, if you do DISC kind of personality style, it's the S personality style. It's the person, it's the lovely uncle or auntie that you have, or the nana, or the granddad that's just there that gives you a big hug. Does that make sense? It's like you've got, and it's that warmth and that connection that you feel, which is the image on the right-hand side. Now, that's great to have warmth, but what we need to have is we need to have almost the equal and opposite. We need to have the strength, which is, James, you're a really nice guy, but can you actually help me? Have you got the skills, the abilities, and all that kind of side of things to help me? And I think James is a great demonstration for this, because he comes across incredibly warm. Sorry for picking on you, James. But then look at his certificates behind him. He's like, look, I know my shit. Do you know what I mean? So I'm a warm, nice guy that's going to listen to you, and I can problem solve. Does that make sense? Now think about those leaders or those people who've got warmth and strength. I always think of like David Attenborough. David Attenborough, the nature guy, he's like the warmest, loveliest guy, but he's got the strength. He's got that passion and that fire in his belly with regards to the environment and animals and stuff like that. Does that make sense? And so we'll look at this in a little bit more about warmth and strength. But any questions on these two factors, just at this level, first of all? Yeah, go for it, Liz.
So I put a comment in the chat.
Oh, yeah.
I just feel that it's hard to really imbue, give off the warmth and strength when you're doing an online meeting. It's just, communication, as you know, is 80% body language. And there's only so much you can really, I guess, give off that warmth in a virtual setting. So that's something I've really noticed. So
let me just try this with you as a demonstration of the two then, Liz, yeah? So I'm going to have my video off, so you can't even see me. So I'm going to do 2 introductions to meetings. Morning, Liz. So what have we got on the agenda today? Okay, option 1. Second option. Morning, Liz. How are you doing today? Can you feel the difference?
Yeah.
So in actual fact, I even can coach via phone, but I close my eyes and I listen to every tone that they're giving me. And it's a matter of, there are some things that you can't control, but you're always looking at what I do control. So in that environment where you strip everything else away from me, and it's just my tone that you can hear, I use my tone very, very purposefully in that moment. Does that make sense? When I'm in front of an audience, it's like, hey, you know what I mean? I can do everything, and I can go up to people, and I can be intense, and I can be you, and I can, you know what I mean? Much more dynamic. But just because I'm not in that environment, you use what you can. And then you go to the next extension of warmth in emails. Hey, Liz, I hope you didn't get flooded in the other day with the bad weather that happened down there, and that everything's all right with you, first, you know, and your family, ? Just wanted to check if it's an appropriate time to have a discussion with you about X. Just let me know either way. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
As opposed to, Liz, I need to have a chat with you about this, which is absolute strength. And I'm giving you the two, and you might want to pick somewhere in between. Do you know what I mean? But it's that kind of demonstration of the two. Yeah. Other questions? Any other questions on warmth and strength? So let me give you a little bit more context in behind warmth and strength then. So the judgments that people make are rarely conscious. So they don't think, oh, that person asked me about the weekend they're demonstrating. They just feel it, you know. And people make decisions that are largely kind of unconscious, and they're very, very snap decisions as well. And they don't even realize, they just go. Like James, you know, for instance, when you came on and I could only hear your voice, I was like, oh, there's a warm character. That's the first thing that I said. Now, I wasn't consciously going, oh, James said X, Y, and Z, therefore he's warm. Does that make sense? It just impacted me. And so that's how quick this is. If you can focus on these two factors and see how important, and just realize that these two factors, one of them may be more important to you than the other, but it's to realize that they're really important to other people as well. So sometimes you need to do things not because they're important to you, but it is important to have that connection with other people. Yeah. There's lots of stuff that you can learn from this. If you look at, there's lots of articles and books and those types of things. Presence is probably my pick out of those two, which is nice and easy to remember. Other articles here around the balance, you know, the balance the best leaders need to find between strength and warmth. So I'm going to give you some slides on this to give you an indication. But if you want to do a little bit more background reading, there's lots of articles and books about this as well. Because basically, if we've got warmth and we've got strength and we bring them together, it's in the middle that we have that leadership impact and presence. And different situations need different things. For instance, if the building was burning down, yeah, I don't want warmth. Yeah, well, definitely don't want warmth. You know what I mean? I want strength. I want Liz to come and see me and say, hey, Robin, you need to get out now that way. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, great, Liz. I don't want Liz to come up and go, hey, Robin, you know, just want to check in. How are you feeling today? Because, you know, it might be really good for you to consider going down the stairs before we all burn. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's a time and a place for it. Do you know what I mean? And so it's realizing that. And also, I would actually, and Liz, working in the public sector, I know, James, you work in the public sector as well in a different country. But the thing is, a lot of the time, I think people have assumptions that senior people only want the strength. It's not the case. You know, I'll give you an example, Liz, that you might remember Dennis Napthine, the Premier of Victoria. Yeah, dealing with Dennis, he was a bit kind of like a bit of a hard, kind of known as being a bit strength and a bit opinionated and hard. I had a great relationship with Dennis because I tapped into his warmth, you know, because he's got, I think, 4 children, 2 are adopted and one's got autism, which my son's got. Now I understand that because I demonstrated warmth to Dennis. I said, how are you doing, Dennis, with the traveling up and back? He said, well, you know, it's a bit hard on the family sometimes. And I asked him about it. I said, oh, I've got a son there. And he used to drop in and say hi to me before kind of going down to his home. So sometimes we assume that people are executives and they only want strength, but in actual fact, they're human beings. They want connection, they want warmth as well. But it is the right balance, you know what I mean? This I find really, really interesting because this is where we need to plot ourselves. Do we have warmth and strength so that we're in the admiration? Or do we have the warmth, which is that we're a really nice guy or a lady or whatever, But if we've got no strength, we just have pity on you. Oh yeah, look at poor Lero, you know, really nice guy, but everyone's going to take advantage of him again. And we have pity for them. Do you know what I mean? Or are we super strong with no warmth? And in that case, we have envy or fear for them. Do you know what I mean? Because they're such a dominant kind of person. Or if someone's just like low strength, low warmth, we just have contempt. Like, who are they anyway? Do you know what I mean? We don't even know who they are. They're irrelevant to us. So it's important to put ourselves here, because we all think, we'd all hope that we're in the strength and the pity. But I can see, you know, for me at different times where I've been more in the envy and fear, and sometimes where I've been more in the pity kind of side of things, you know. And it's good to have that acceptance about where you are. So where do you want to dial it up to get the outcome? Because that's where you get the executive kind of inspirational kind of strength and warmth for the things that you're kind of passionate about. Yeah. So yeah, if you're seeing it as low warmth, you have something like a 1 in 2,000 chance to make the top quartile effectiveness as a leader. You know, that's what they identified in this. So when people say, oh no, business is just about strength, if you don't, you know, the statistics kind of speak for themselves there. Yeah. If you don't sound, but equally on the strength, if you don't sound and look like you're confident with the content, what you're saying, they will think that you're not sure. Yeah. And that's why it's really important, if you're a more introverted person, to work out and know your stuff before you actually present it, so that you can talk with authority around it. Yeah, that can be the case, Liz, but it's a matter of like, okay, where else can you connect with them? But you could have empathy as well. Do you know what I mean? Around how that, you know, yeah, just have empathy with them around whatever it kind of comes up with them. Do you know what I mean? And there's a process that you might want to look at. It's an influence technique called appreciative inquiry, which is actually delving in and asking questions of the other person, even though you're not actually interested in it, but they feel like really respected and understood and empathized with and everything else like that, and much more kind of, and it can be about things that you're just, you know, don't go on for you, but it's actually about the art of kind of doing the appreciative inquiry with them. Does that make sense?
Well, I guess the point I was trying to make is that not everyone is a parent. So,
yeah,
you know, when people sort of, like, I had a project manager that was onboarding well, not onboarding, but like had to give us some guidance on her work. She was new to the organization, and, you know, her thing was like, oh, well, I'm mum tired. I'm sorry. That just really just doesn't work for me when people sort of try to go, oh, mum tired. Tired of being tired. We're all tired. It's the end of the year. We're all busy.
Yeah.
And so I guess when, you know, I guess in the same way that we're trying to learn warmth and strength, is that assumptions that people make about each other in order to build connection isn't necessarily always the good thing.
Yeah, but also in that moment, are they actually kind of assuming that you are or you're not? But the thing is to, in that moment, there's an opportunity. If you say, oh, mum tired, what's that normal tired? The person's actually looking for a sense of connection by what they're saying. So if you can actually just focus on what they're meaning rather than what they're saying, then you can connect with them. Because it's like, oh yeah, you really exhausted at the moment. Yeah, flat out exhausted. Yeah, I get that. You know, like it has been really tough, you know? And so it's actually about not being triggered by kind of words, because, and it's actually, if you, I mean, and this is a separate subject, if you're triggered by anything, it's normally that there's stuff for you to kind of work on as a person. So if ever I get triggered externally, there's stuff for me to kind of work on. But like in that instance, and also like with like being a parent, I would say, yeah, but do you, everyone has a loved one. Do you know what I mean? And it doesn't necessarily, you know, have to be that it was my biological child or adopted child or whatever. It can be, you know, my parents or my sisters or my siblings, or, you know, a really close friend of mine. Do you know what I mean? Or it could be a dog or a cat or whatever that kind of impacts me, you know, because if my dog's kind of died, that's been with me for 16 years, that's going to be a really emotional thing for me. And I can connect with the, you know, maybe I've never had a dog, but I can see and I can witness, because human beings want to be witnessed. That is the most fundamental component for people, is to have a sense of being witnessed, which kind of forms that connection. Does that make sense?
Yeah, look, it's a separate topic that I'm trying to raise awareness in the workplace of people making assumptions that it's okay to say, do you have kids, and let's connect on that. And it's just something that I guess I was going to raise not go on about it, but just say, hey, present impact is that the assumption that everyone has children, or that it's okay to say, do you have kids? I mean, for myself as a woman of color, when people, the first question is, oh, where are you from? What's your background? Where did you come from? And it's all the things that people choose that they think are okay to ask questions in order to build rapport, to build a connection. And I guess it's about trying to find other ways to build connection beyond.
Oh, totally. One great question to do is like, hey Liz, if you had a day off, what would you do? So it's very open, and then you go to the areas where I go to the cinema. Oh, you like food? So I've been, and then I'm going down the line of questioning. So to keep it broad and open. Now, I'll give you an example where I created an accidental adversary. I asked a guy when I was working for the government down there. I asked the guy, first time I met him on a Monday, we were doing a negotiation, came into the room, I went to shake his hand, and I said, oh, how was your weekend? Great to meet you, Mark. How was your weekend? He didn't shake my hand. He looked me in the eye and said, what the F has that got to do with you? Subsequently found out on the weekend that in actual fact, his wife kicked him out. So, I'm the first one Monday morning going, hey, how was your weekend? Do you know what I mean? Like the biggest trigger to him in that moment. But I said, in that moment, I said, oh, apologize. What would you like to do? He said, I think we should get on with the meeting. I said, okay, let's do that. How would you like to do that? We did the meeting. It finished. The end of the meeting, he said, hey, Robin, that was really good. We should really catch up for a coffee sometime. So it's funny how things go around. So definitely be aware of exactly that, which is that creating that accidental adversary. Yeah. So there's this balance between where we build trust is where we have the warmth, where we're a good listener, we're collaborative, we're helpful, we're caring, we're open, we're compassionate, we're all those things. But we've got the strength, we're confident, we're assertive, we're intelligent, we're challenging, and we're powerful. It's actually the balance between these two spectrums that's most important. And like I spoke about, you've got the visual, the vocal, and the verbal to kind of use to help you with that. Do you need to slow down a little bit? Do you need to be softer? Do you need to be greater? Do you need to talk in kind of bullet points to people, whatever the case may be? So that's where trust is built, the congruity between the three. Now, what we're going to do is kind of look at some practical strategies of things that you can do in having a greater level of influence and impact. So one of them is like change management, is identifying key stakeholders and building a powerful coalition to start with. It's the work that you do outside of meetings of priming and prepping so that when you stand up and say something, you know that it's going to land. Does that make sense? When I was doing board work, a director said, yeah, Robin, never say anything that you don't know what the answer will be. So it's literally, you've primed everyone on everything. So the board meeting just becomes kind of academic. So, that's one extreme, but yeah, definitely make sure that you've identified the key stakeholders and you bring them along on the journey. Now, also there's levels of conviction, this little graph on the right-hand side is useful. It's like the belief in your message. And then it's the focus of control, belief in yourself. So you've got to be careful that you don't come across as arrogant. You got to be careful that you don't come across as, self-doubt, that it's actually confident. And that's what I find is people tend to go from one extreme. They tend to go from self-doubt to arrogant. They get shot down and then they go back to self-doubt again. Do you know what I mean? And it's actually about really believing in your message internally. Yeah. And so really write out what your key messages are. Speak with conviction about that. You don't have to say, people are convinced by three things, not lots and lots and lots of things. Yeah. Out of all the reasons why someone should do something, pick the three non-negotiable and focus on them. That's the key thing. And that comes to, having a convincing rationale. Set yourself up for success, particularly if you're an introvert. The facts speak for themselves. All the evidence points to taking this action. Let's take a look at the metrics. We're using words like that to substantiate. I think we should do this because there was research showed that they did this. It was they show you how old this research. It was about a photocopier in one of the universities in the US. And what they did is they did a trial of people coming in the queue and saying, hey, can I jump into the queue because my mum needs to go to the hospital and I need to get it photocopied really quickly, right? And then they got people to go in and say, hey, look, can I just jump in the queue because I really need to get this photocopied, right? So one's a legitimate reason, one's a non-legitimate reason. The success factor, I think, was something like 82% of the legitimate answer, the person let them in. The non-legitimate, because 78% of people let them in. Just because you put the word because, the other person's subconscious brain goes, well, there must be a valid reason in that. Do you know what I mean? So the word because, and if you've got a rationale, is very, very influential. Yeah. This is what I was saying, Liz, about the balancing your arguments with contrary opinion. Consider presenting your proposals as analysis. Hey, look, it's just the way that I'm seeing it. I might have got this wrong. You hear David Attenborough where someone says, oh, David, I've seen this animal that does this. And he goes, oh, really? That's interesting because that animal normally does this. Tell me more. Because maybe that's a new kind of thing. And then very quickly, the person realizes that they got it wrong. Do you know what I mean? But he doesn't tell them that they got it wrong. So, using words such as, let's weigh up the pros and cons here, now you may be saying to yourself, ... but just inviting that contrary opinion and debate actually builds your level of influence and impact because people see you as credible for being able to engage with that. Yeah. Reduce and simplify, keep the key points, in MIBS items, ministerial notes, Liz, this is exactly it. Don't give them more information than they need, like,
that room I haven't heard for a while.
Oh God, you know what I mean? Like the minister's come back and said he wants X, Y, Z. Oh, while we were there, we thought we would change X, Y, and Z and give him all this other information. Oh my God, we've caused a bigger problem again. Keep it simple, stupid. Yeah. Too much detail often confuses and overwhelms. Executives will only look at things kind of quickly, get to the point. Yeah. That's where the strength comes because it's more influential. Yeah.
It's the wisdom. What's in it for them?
What's in it for them? Absolutely. Weak arguments are easier to challenge. Yeah. Don't give them as much. If they want more, then give them more. So be prepared for everything. This is the saying I have. Prepare for everything. Deploy what's needed. That's it. Get the outcome, move away. And that's where I've seen people, convincing someone and the other person's gone, yeah, absolutely agreed. We should do that. And then the other person keeps talking. Yeah, look, I really think it's the right thing because this is what's going to happen and this is what's going to happen. And then the person's gone, what? What's that? Oh, no, I disagree with that bit. And then they've reversed the decision. And I'm like, you've talked them out of an answer. Yeah. This is the knowledge value chain because what we have is we have data, we have information, we have knowledge, but we need to communicate that as intelligence. So out of all the reasons why this is the best way of go and all the reasons why we shouldn't, this is the intelligence, the key ones that I'm going to inform you of so that you can make a decision and an action, and then we're going to create value. So that's the world, particularly in a technical world, like there's the assumption that we're across all the blue and we need to communicate that last little bit that moves us to the intelligence. Yeah. Sell the benefits, how this will help the other person, what's in it for them. And just to get really clear on this, because this is where people get really confused. What's a feature and what's a benefit? So a feature is something what it is. So an apple, for instance, is something that's low calorie. That's a feature. That's what it is. But a benefit is this, that you will look better than the donkey from accounting at the end of year party if you keep eating me. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, that's a little bit of a jokey one, but what's the benefits of that? The benefits are that you're going to be able to run and exercise and feel better. your life expectancy. You're going to be able to enjoy those activities with your friends and your loved ones without getting out of breath now. That's the benefit. Does that make sense? So we need to really focus in on what's in it from them, but focus on the benefits. Now, the easy way to do that is use this sentence. What this means for you is ... If you can just have that sentence in everything that you say, you'll be converting a feature to a benefit. There's just a few more kind of strategies to go through. One is understand their decision-making criteria, not yours. What's important to them? Yeah. How will they decide yes or no? And if you don't know, ask them. Preempt them. Say, hey, Julie, I'm going to be doing a report on X. Like, for you to make a decision, yes or no, what's the non-negotiables that would make you go one way or another? Let me understand that now, so then I can go away and put that together, then come back to you. That's much more effective, yeah, than putting something up and then having lots of tic-tac to and fro from someone. Influence, he says, lies in the picture that the person sees. So try and paint a picture about what it looks like. Clarity is the #1 factor for high performance and achieving outcomes. So if you can get them clear of what the picture looks like that you're wanting to paint, then that will help you get across to them what you want to get across to them. Yeah. Liz, you were going to say something there?
I just say, there's a way that you could just, do a Control-Alt-Delete and clear all those.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Yeah, that's in the ninja level stuff, you know what I mean?
But maybe the way I want to try and couch it is, there's, seeing what's inside someone's head and understanding their criteria, but how do you get someone, and I know it's not an easy answer, but just be open to new ideas. So you can have presence and impact, but if they are just deep down, no, I'm not going to change the way I've done things ever, for who you are.
The #1 thing is forget about your story. In that situation, forget about your story, because they're being very vocal. Like, I'm not taking in any information that you're saying. And if you carry on talking at me, Liz, you're literally crazy, stupid, or evil, because I've been clear with you that I'm not changing. And you're the one that's mad, not them. So what you need to do is go, cool, let me understand. Before I can change a picture, I need to understand what the picture that currently is in your brain. So I've got to understand, let me absolutely get you. And only until I get you will I then try to kind of paint a different picture, because the law of reciprocity kicks in. They've felt like you've asked them questions and you've been open to understanding everything. And they'll be like, oh, but Liz, what do you think about that? And then you'll find that they'll actually invite you to actually re-engage again. Yeah. Use both towards and away language. Good things will happen if we do this. Bad things will happen if we don't do this. But you need to balance up towards and away language. So this is what we say, 40% towards, 40% away, and 20% kind of in the middle is kind of the best. To be like, we've got to do it because the business is going to crash, and all of that, it just gets exhausting. If it's all inspirational without reality, then it's not balanced, and we've got to balance both the pain gain side of things. There was an interesting book that, in actual fact, people run 3 times more powerful away from pain than they do towards joy. So, that's kind of indicating that when it comes to crunch, you really want to get someone to do something that, look, we can't go that way, is actually the defining. But generally speaking, don't rely on that all the time. It needs to be balanced. Using away language, look, and painting pictures, we don't want this, but we want more of this in our life. And you can achieve that if you increase your level of influence and impact. And that's the power of kind of an image, and maybe you connect with the image, maybe you're not, but it's that example. If we don't want that, we want more of this in our lives. And finally, just make sure that you're motivating people. People make decisions on 2 things. You persuade them logically, but you motivate them with the heart. It's actually the reasoning and the emotion. And if you focus on one without the other, you're only looking at 50% of the puzzle. So that's where the persuading is really the logical mind strength. The motivation is the heart. And what pretty much always trumps it is the heart, pretty much. Some people, it is the rational, but it is actually in the minority. It is the majority is actually the heart. But don't just go heart, because you need the balance of both. Key points: 80% of your impact relates to the warmth and strength. Be absolutely clear about your vision. Exploit multiple forums. Keep it simple. Use metaphors. Repeat, repeat, repeat. Every vehicle is a possibility for dialing and shifting your presence and impact. There's a process that I have called the upgraded avatar. It's a template that I have, but just generally speaking, you just go, right, what's an upgraded version of me look like, smell like, taste like? Like, from this, how am I going to act and behave, and what are the simple changes that I need to make that are true for me? Yeah. So I'd love to hear, what were your key insights? Just give us one, be concise, one key insight that you're taking away from today. Liz, you're off of mute first. So what's one insight that you're taking away from today?
I've heard it before, but I really like that you reiterated that thing about you meet with someone, the think, feel, do.
Yeah, it's a great one.
You made it with me, because and what I'm about to embark on changing the organization is,
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Liz. James?
I think of the components, the think piece. I don't want to go too long-winded, but this dovetails well with my intent-based management style. I have a really good, strong working team because I allow them to be the professionals in their areas.
Yeah.
They come to me when they have problems, and I make certain decisions. Sometimes the answer is no, but at least they feel that they're in charge of their realm. Now I have to turn around and take our needs, wants, and desires from our department to those people who are the power brokers in the organization. And I think one of the key components that I gathered is I need to think more about what their view of what I'm going to be asking is going to be, because then that allows me to build an argument for all of the key elements that they're going to be curious about. I want them to understand that this is important for them, and this is why. And I think, like Liz, I think the think, feel, do component is critically important when you've established a relationship already, but you have to make an argument for something. Yeah, perfect. Thanks, James. And Deborah, are you there? Are you able to come off mute?
I am here, and I'm sorry I'm not able to share video in this environment that I'm in.
That's all right.
Knocking me out. I tried, but I did come back. So for me, I think it was really insightful to learn about the impact of warmth. Yeah. And it's starting to kind of make some things that have happened to me make sense, because I come from a very down to earth, very loving, warm family. Yeah. And it's not something I've learned really. It's just part of who I am. So the fact that warmth and I think it's just being approachable and is as important as strength is huge. It's a huge thing for me to learn about. So thank you for that.
No worries. And it's always like with all of this, you look at some of the tools and tactics and you go, that I'm really naturally strong on, great. But then you can actually learn the other bits that balance it up, whatever they are. And it might be more strength, it might be more warmth, it could be any one of them. Yeah. Just to
I don't
give
know
you,
if you can learn warmth though, honestly. It's kind of like trying to teach somebody empathy. It's you either have it or you don't.
Yeah, you can teach anyone anything if they're open.
Oh, I guess so.
Yeah,
sure. All right.
So generally what we do in InspireMe, I work with executives and leaders. One is to overcome complicated professional and personal challenges. It's to give them more meaning, joy, and purpose in their life and work, whatever that looks like, and also to lift their level of influence and impact. They're the three key things that I help people with. So if you know of anyone, or if you're interested, then I'm here, and we coach people both sides of the Atlantic. If you did want to book in with me, there's a link that Liro will just put in the chat. And that's just, you can use that link. You can find a time in my calendar. I'm pretty chocker this week, next week, but then the week after that, there should be a lot of availability. And you can just book in for a 30-minute session and actually just have a chat with me, and we can go through strategizing whatever you want. It could be on this or another subject that you just want some advice and guidance. So click on that link and book in. And yeah, that's a freebie. There is no sale or anything. I just, I get frustrated when people stay stuck, basically. There's lots of other free resources that are out there. Again, Lero, if you can just put the links in the chat for people, you can download my book, which is up there for free. We've got a LinkedIn group. There's a 5-day video series about kickstarting with regards to optimizing your productivity and lifestyle balance and those things. Or you can just subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. So that's all there, and all the links, you can just copy and paste them and grab them. And we'll email them out as well, and we'll email the recording out for everyone. And that's it. For me, look, bang on the hour. How about that? Any final questions, queries from anyone at all?
Done. Really enjoy the session, Robin. Thank you.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Well,
Absolutely.
You go enjoy your day. Deborah, James, enjoy Thanksgiving. Hope you have a great time there. And if you need anything, you know where we are. And we look forward to seeing you next time. Cheers, guys. Bye now.
Great.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Feel free to share with friends and check out what's up next for more videos from my channel.